Good evening. Hi, I'm Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer here at Aesthetic Record, and we are thrilled tonight to offer to you an educational opportunity to really learn more about digital marketing, about your web presence, and about how to increase your overall revenue. We're partnering tonight with our friends at MyAdvice, and MyAdvice increases revenue through digital marketing. Their platform enables hands-on control backed by expertise in websites, local directories, reviews, social media, SEO, and paid advertising. And tonight we're going to partner to bring the pyramid of success to you. It's a 6-step bottom-up pyramid that encompasses all these features, and it really works. And here tonight to guide our journey are Michael Antosi and Robbie Antosi. Michael is a national speaker and practice coach consultant at MyAdvice. He's consulted with thousands of aesthetic practices since 2010, and his counsel and guidance have been transformative in making his clients' lives better by saving them time, earning more money, and helping them to make their practices more competitive in their marketplace. He's presented at some of the biggest conferences in aesthetics, and his passion is really about helping his clients succeed. And Robbie has worked as a digital marketing consultant in the aesthetic world for nearly a whole decade. Having presented at also some of the biggest aesthetic conferences, he is well versed in understanding the specific needs and challenges aesthetic practices face. In short, he prides himself in helping small businesses become more profitable through proper guidance, paired with cutting-edge technologies provided by our partner, MyAdvice. So Robbie and Michael, welcome to our webinar. Glad to have you both on tonight.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. Pleasure to be here. Okay, well, guys, just to adjust the elephant in the room here, if you look at both of our last names, yes, we are related. Pleasure to be able to come here with you here tonight. My name's Michael. This is Robbie. And we're very excited, and both Robbie and I have a lot of passion really in this industry. And I would say above anything else, we love being able to help people and help really nurture practices in the ways that are going to be very meaningful for them. And, you know, just to give you a little bit of an introduction on MyAdvice before we really dive into this, as an organization, we're actually entering our 23rd year helping aesthetic practices of all sizes and composition, those that are really just getting started and they have no idea really how to build out a proper business plan as it relates to their online strategy, or practices that are very mature and they have multiple locations and many, many providers. Between Rob and I, we actually bring over 20 years of combined consulting experience in this space. And we really know how to make practices grow in the right ways. And I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure that Robbie would probably agree at this point. With our years of doing this, we're almost, in addition to practice growth consultants, we're almost self-trained therapists in a way. And the reason why that is because oftentimes when we work with practices, it's very much not uncommon for practices to be very frustrated with the return that they're getting from their marketing. And they're spending a lot of money. They're not seeing the results that they want to be seeing. And there's a sense of, I just want this to work, but I don't know really what to do. Tonight, we're going to demystify that, because what I want to teach you, what we're going to teach you is a framework and a process in the right way of actually executing your online strategy. And here's a little tidbit before we get into it. Search engine optimization is a very common buzz phraseology that gets tossed a lot around in the digital world. That is not the first thing that you should ever do. And if anyone ever tells you to do search engine optimization, you need to run from that person, because I'm not here to say that SEO is not effective, but it's very expensive to do. And it takes a consistent effort to see a good, strong return on investment from. So if that's not what we're going to do first, this is really what we're going to introduce in terms of a framework here. If we could start the slide deck here, I would appreciate that, because we want to start to dive in here too a little bit. But before we kind of get into really the proper sequencing and the structure and the ways in terms of really how you build out a web strategy, let me just talk about the big why as to why we're here, because ultimately this is about making your practice much more profitable. That's what your web strategy is. It's a big, efficient sales funnel for your practice. So naturally, whenever I meet practice owners, the first question that I always want to ask is, well, how's the business side of your practice going? And, you know, common answers that I'll hear all the time is people will say to me, well, you know, last month was our best month ever, or last quarter was our best quarter ever. Particularly, honestly, since the pandemic, I've heard a lot of that as well too. For some practices, business had never been better. But really, what's behind those answers and what drives those answers is that those people that say that last quarter is our best quarter ever, last year was our best year ever, is that they're looking at patients as individual transactions. And you add up those transactions over time, and that equals the revenue that you've generated. And oftentimes you relate the spend of your marketing to what that revenue has generated. And yes, while your marketing can be used to drive past historical revenue, that's not really what its true intention is, because that's a very shallow perspective. The real valuation in terms of why you make investments into digital, not costs, but investments into digital, is because it's meant to build in future valuation. What are the revenue dollars that you're investing into today that are paying the dividends 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, et cetera, et cetera? In other words, what is it really doing to drive what we call patient lifetime value? And there have been a lot of data studies in terms of what lifetime value is for an average aesthetics practice. And typically the first time that an average patient will come in, they're generally spending around $1,400. That can be, Botox, consultation time, maybe some other fillers. I'll tell you guys in full transparency, I just had a child last week. For a push present, my wife wants a PRP facial. I spent $1,500 on that for 3 sessions. So this number for me is actually a very true number. But keep in mind, your goal of your practice is not just to convert that one, say, PRP facial client or patient. The goal is to have them invest into multiple services for many, many, many years on end. And on average, what that patient has invested into your practice is around $57,000. So think about that for a second and go back to that question where, hey, how's the business side of your practice going? Very rare does anyone ever say, well, you know what, Michael, say the $1,000 I invested into, the $500 I invested into this month have actually generated, say over $100,000 of future valuation. So when you really start to understand that that's what your marketing is built to do, how is it that you really capitalize on generating more of that lifetime value patient? And that is where this proven method, which we call the pyramid of success, really comes into play. And this is what Rob and I are going to teach you about here tonight. And we're going to walk you through this process. And if you feel like your practice, again, is just getting started and you have no idea where to turn, this is a great, great webinar here for you. Consequently, if your practice is spending a lot of money and you're not seeing the returns that you want, this is equally as good, because what we're also going to teach about is fortifying and buttressing very foundational things that are going to make your strategy work much better. So when folks say, what's the first thing I ever should do? You have to have a website. And I see this a lot, especially with newer practices where they maybe focus a lot on social media. Guys, you have to have a website. And the reason why that is because you need to know how you can grow your practice through data. Because without data, without understanding time spent on a website, without understanding time on pages or where leads are coming from, you're just another person with an opinion. You have to be able to make decisions about growth based on what the numbers actively say. And a website allows you to capture so much engagement data with patients as they're seeking you out online. Now, again, from there, the next thing that you do not do is search engine optimization. The next thing that you do not do is even social media. But you want to affirm that how what we call your practice's NAP citation data, and basically how your business listing information is being aggregated within what we call local directories, is consistent and it's also accurate. From there are online reviews. And specifically, when I talk about reviews, what I'm referring to are Google reviews and Facebook reviews. One has most application with how you're going to acquire more revenue. The other one's going to have more application with how you retain revenue. From there, that's where you then layer in a good social media presence and staying very active on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Now, when you have done these first 4 things, everybody, this is a complete internet presence. And you do not have to do more if you do not want to do more. The goal always, first and foremost, should be fortifying a complete internet strategy. But if the goal is to grow quicker and faster, more acceleratedly, only at that point do you start to layer in search engine optimization, or even then paid ads on, say, platforms like Google or social media. But the idea about this is that you never do these things until you take care of your foundation here first. So obviously, first things first is that everything starts here with your website. Because again, it is the hub that governs all of the visibility spokes of what you have. But what makes a website? Why do you actually have a website? And think about that rhetorically, because whenever I ask people that question, people will say to me, well, Michael, it's that way people can look me up. They can see what I do. They can look at before and after photos. They can download forums. Others will say to me, well, you have to have a website. Like, you just have to have one. All those answers are representative of what a website is, but it's not the whole reason as to why you have it. You have a website to make money. Very simply put, a website that works well is one that's going to convert leads on a very, very, very efficient level. Not only does a website have to be beautiful, but it has to make your phone ring. And if it's not doing that, then the website is not doing the job for you as it should. Guys, I want to tell you a little bit of a story here. So I was given this presentation a few years ago at the aesthetic show, and ran through the presentation. This doctor comes up to me afterwards, and he tells me he has a really, really bad problem at his practice. And I said, well, talk to me about your problem. And he goes, listen, Mike, I'm just going to tell you right now, I am the best Botox injector in Calgary. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I've been doing it for over 20 years. No one does injectables better than what I do. I'm just telling you that I am the best. And I was like, okay, you mentioned you had a problem. What's your problem? He goes, oh, yeah, my problem. Well, here's my problem. My problem is that this practice just opened up about 6 months ago. And I've noticed that ever since this practice has come into my market, my schedules are down. I'm not doing as many injectables as I want. That's taking away revenue from other things that I typically like to convert patients for. And I'm freaking out because my top of funnel thing that I bring people in is no longer as efficient really as it should. And my revenues are down. Okay, great. Thank you for telling me your problem. Let's talk about, and I said to the doctor, all right, well, let's take a look at your website. Let's see what you're working with. So he told me his website name, and I looked at the website, and right away, I knew exactly what his problem was. And I said, doctor, I know exactly what your problem is. He goes, well, talk to me. What's happening? Why are my schedules down? And I said, you just got down telling me that you are the best at doing facial injectables in Calgary, and no one does them any better than what you do. He goes, yes, that's an absolute fact. And I said to him, well, honestly, doctor, your website, it makes you look mediocre. And I think it kind of bruised his ego a little bit. But guys, I got to tell you, this is a dinosaur website. I mean, it had been built like 20 years ago. It looked like it had one of those website ticker counters where it would tell you were like the 10,000th visitor to the website. If you guys remember that from back in the 90s. And I said to him, I'm like, well, when's the last time you've ever been on this website? He goes, I've never been on this. It's been years. So I went to his competitor's website. And this site was beautiful. It was vibrant. It had great imagery. It had great videography, good content. It was just about a vibe. It was giving people a vibe that, yes, I want to be a part of this practice. So here's the key point of this, is that patients make decisions on going to your practice within 2.9 seconds. That's how quickly first impressions are made. And those decisions are, am I going to stay or am I going to go? And if the patient leaves your site, they never become converted. So you have to keep that patient on your site. So we're going to do a quick little test here with you guys. I'm going to show you 6 websites on the next slide. And just to prep you here, there's going to be 3 websites across the top, numbered 1, 2, 3. There's going to be 3 other websites on the bottom, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to give you 2.9 seconds. And within that time frame, I want you to tell me which are the practices that you're going to, just based around what you see. All right? Hopefully you guys are ready. I'm just going to click on next here. Okay, I gave you a little bit more than 2.9 seconds, but let's revisit this here again. And hopefully, my hope is, now that you guys are taking a bit of a second look at this here, that you would answer number 6 and then number 2. Crossing my fingers, I know you guys can't respond here live here, but hopefully that these are the websites that you had answered. Why is it number 6 and number 2 compared to all the rest? And by the way, everybody, just so you guys know, all these sites that I shared with you are top ranking websites in their individual markets. And so when it comes to the top of rankings within Google, this is the first impression that people are seeing. 2 and 6, though, they're the most visual sites. They give you a sense of vibe and an essence. It gives you an energy that you really want to be a part of. Big imagery, right? Simple navigation, doesn't feel too complicated, doesn't feel like I'm going to have to work any harder than what I need to. And that's the whole point of the game, guys, is you want to make things as easy for your patients to convert efficiently from your website. But it's not just enough to have a beautiful website. The website needs to actively convert leads for you. So what that basically means is that as we take a look at a site like this, it doesn't matter where we scroll, that navigation on the website where that phone number, I know it's a little bit smaller here on the screen, but it's in the upper right-hand corner, that never, ever, ever should leave the eye line of the visitor, because that is the whole call to action into a practice. People go into a website, what do you want them to do next? Well, you want them to call. You see, a practice like this is also integrating a chat tool. Chats can be very, very effective lead gen sources for websites. On average, what our data basically shows is that if you integrate a chat tool like our product that we have that's called Chat Power, generally speaking, practices are seeing about a 30% increase with leads than those that do not have them. As this consolidates itself down onto a smartphone, is it mobile responsive? Are there features like mobile click to call? Is your website also ADA compliant? For those of you that are on this webinar, and if you have a Wix website or a Squarespace website, these are not good platforms to keep your websites on, namely because they're not ADA compliant. And additively, Wix websites, they are not responsive frameworks. You have to have a desktop version, and then you have to have a mobile version. They don't talk to one another, and that's bad for Google rankings. So again, at the end of the day, your website has to be beautiful, but it also actively has to convert leads well here for you. So
hey,
now
Mike, I have a quick point on that as well. Just to jump in here, when we're consulting with any type of medical spa, you could be established, you could be a solo injector, really just getting started. We also really want to focus on image selection when it comes down to the actual website. And what we find is that nothing dilutes messaging more on a website than just a litter of a lot of stock photos. So when we're developing websites, we really try to express like, hey, think about your assets. If you have a nice waiting room, if you can get a picture of yourself from the outside of your practice, those are things that really do a good job. What Michael's referring to right now, these are all ideas that are really kind of snowball into what are called conversion tools. So live chat, as an example, is a conversion tool. But if we're thinking about your online presence as all of these different spokes, image selection in terms of a website, you really want to focus on having a lot of authenticity, a lot of original photos, because what that really does is that when someone gets referred over to your practice, or say someone found you through Google search, that just simply wraps a nice warm blanket around that person and says, hey, you found the place to go to. This is what it feels like if you actually walk into my practice. You want that same feeling to come across when someone lands on your website.
That's a really, really, really important point that Robbie just raised. What I will also additively say, though, is typically when we work with practices, sourcing original photography, scheduling all your staff to come in at the same time, that also can be kind of a headache in and of itself. So you absolutely always should have as much original, unique photography on your website that should always be the first goal. But if that's not a doable goal right now, don't let that hold you up, because progress is much better than stagnation. That's where things like, stock photography can also become helpful assets if you don't necessarily have the time right then to actually produce that content. But Robbie raises a significantly great point. Now from there, let's dive into more of the visibility aspects of things, because guys, at the end of the day, your website is a commodity. It's not really the most expensive thing that you build. Frankly, even when we build websites for clients, we don't even charge anything upfront for them. If we can go back to the slide deck here, though, I want to introduce you now to the sequencing really of more visibility. And this is actually what your dollars go into spending. So the very first thing that you then have to do once you have a great website is you need to affirm that what we call your practice's NAP citation data, and basically how your business listing information is being aggregated and seen among what we call local directories, is consistent and it's also accurate. Now, you probably have no idea what I just said here to you guys. So let me at least set the dinner table so that way we can understand what I just mentioned here. First of all, think about where people go to seek out services. It doesn't matter if I'm looking up Morpheus 8, if I'm looking up M-Sculpt, M-Face, or Dysport, lip filler. People seek those services out first and foremost on Google. Hopefully we can all agree with that point, because Google is where discoverability happens. I am definitely not saying that people might not go to an Instagram or to a Facebook, but that tends to be more passive-based searched. In other words, when we know that we want to invest into something, we typically start that journey on Google first. Google drives 92% of worldwide search. Now, some things about the Google infrastructure that you also want to understand is that 1 in 2 searches is localized. So in other words, what that means is that it will coincide with a geographic location, somebody searching something, something, something in your local market, or more commonly of how people search, and I'm sure that everybody that's on this webinar here or watching this webinar has done this before, is you search for something with the phraseology near me. Hey, Google, who is doing Kybella near me? Or where can I find the most affordable microneedling near me, so on and so forth. Google is rife with localized near me searches. So if I'm Google, if I'm really trying to qualify businesses on a localized level, what is it that I'm looking for? Am I looking at your website or your content? No. But the very first thing that Google wants to see is what we call the consistency of your NAP data. Very simply put, NAP is an acronym for what's your practice's name, your address, as well as your phone number, and how that data is being listed among what we call local directories. You can think about local directories as being like micro search engines. Now, there's over 80 of these profiles, and Google looks at all of these directories, the ones that you know at the top here, for example, your Yahoo, your Bing, your Facebooks, etc., but also the more lesser known directories, local database, local pages, localstack.com, show me local. Now, I'm not saying that patients necessarily go to these directories to seek out a med spa or to seek out aesthetic services. They go to Google for that, but Google relies on all of this data here to basically promote practices on a localized level. Now, if there are a lot of inaccuracies with that data, what that ultimately means is that Google trusts your practice much less. That lessens your visibility on a localized level. And therefore, a patient could be within arguably 2 or 3 miles of your practice seeking out your services, and you're just not really showing up because of the inaccuracies of your information. Guys, we actually did a case study on this a few summers, about 1.5 years ago. And what we have found by studying over 8,000 aesthetics practices, only 1 in 10 is actively doing something about citation management. So if you're looking to invest into a good growth opportunity, you have to be doing citations. So this is a scan report here that I took from one of my practices that we work with. And their citations were a mess because they had rebranded themselves so much. And all these directories just had no idea who the heck this practice actively was. The reason why this is due to the impact of what we call data aggregators. So what the heck are data aggregators? Well, they're things like credit card files, government records, leasing agreements. So once misinformation is out there about a business entity, that will never go away. And it doesn't go away because it gets indexed and churned and redistributed to many of these different data aggregators, and that information is then fed to these local directories. So addressing your bad citations is not what we call citation quote unquote fixing, because if there was a one and done fix, trust me, you would be able to be better positioned on that. But you need a process or a tool in place. And if we can actually go back over to the other screen here, I want to share this here with you guys. So one tool that we offer for our practices, can I go to my shared screen, please? Thank you. Is a tool that's called Local Power, okay? This is a very inexpensive tool that we offer for our practices. We actually price this at $199 per month. And there is also too some webinar discounts that we'll talk to you guys about here at the end if you're interested. But basically what Local Power is, it's an integration that connects into a Google business profile, and it's going to do 2 things. First of all, when you create this integration and this system is turned on, the equivalent of these digital walls will get created. And while that misinformation of bad data is always constantly flowing to these local directories, there's now a blockade in here. If you're a basketball fan, it's almost like boxing out bad data. Okay, so that's really step 1 in the process. Secondly, what Local Power then does is it pushes forward the clean and the accurate listing information to all of your directories. And that's not just simply limiting to name, address, and phone number, but it's also telling these profiles, hey, what are the office hours that you keep? What are all of the services that you offer at your practice? It's really complete business listing management. When that is able to be achieved, what ends up happening is that your citation problem is fixed, and that helps to promote more visibility. And for those of you that have been doing marketing in your practice, you hear the phraseology all the time. Well, things take time, things take time, things take time. Managing your citations is not a this takes time thing. That is certainly true with SEO, or even say building out your Google reviews. But this is really instantaneous fixing. So when we put this system to work here, this is actually a case study that we took from one of my practices, Michelle. Just to give Michelle's profile, she's a nurse practitioner, single provider, single location, staff member of 1. She was looking to grow. And so this is really the first thing that we fortified for her. And when we first started to put this tool to work, her accuracy score was only 16%. So in other words, the inverse of this is 84% inaccurate. Within 30 days, though, we were able to achieve 94% increased visibility for Michelle's practice. And that's not just what that basically 94% represented was about 3,400 additive search views, not only just within google.com, but other platforms like Google Maps, for example. Or if I were to say, take out my iPhone and say, hey, Siri, show me a med spa near me. There's a lot of different ways that
option I see is control.
Sorry, guys. My phone hurt me there. There's a lot of different ways that patients will access local resources, and this helps to optimize you across the board for all of those. Now, this is just really one person's case study, and what I will also say here to you guys is that in the realm of digital, if anyone ever tells you the word promise or the word guarantee, they're lying to you, because that is not possible. Google makes over 9 changes to its algorithm every single day. It's a constantly moving target. However, what I can tell you, though, is what average data points are for practices that we work with. So we took the rigor of putting together a 60-day impact case study of local power's efficacy for over 200 of our practices. And some were in greater states of inaccuracy, others were in lesser states of inaccuracy. Some were doing more to complement their marketing than others. But the bottom line of what you tend to see on average within the first 60 days of implementation is a 23% increase in terms of your Google search views, a 22% increase in terms of direction requests from Google Maps, 18% increase from listings, 11% increase from phone call volume from your listings. So again, this is a tool that is very foundational and fundamental, because what this also does too is it buttresses and fortifies all the other things that your strategy is doing. It's not just about citations, but it's about how this fits into all the other pieces as well here too. And I also just want to share here with you guys some data that we are able to track here from one of my clients. So this is a practice that I work with in Tampa, and we started working with them about 6 months ago. But what you can see here is look at the huge amount of increase that their visibility has been able to achieve in terms of Google search views, Google Map views as well here too. Notice as well, the Maps views is actually superseding than regular Google search. Oftentimes when we think about Google, we just think about Google search. We don't think about Maps. This is actually more, this actually takes up more of a considerable market share in terms of their initial visibility with where people search, as opposed to actually google.com. Understanding, where your queries are coming from. Notice here when you take a look at the discovery traffic, this is the lion's share. Those are all those near me searches that I was talking to you about. Botox near me, lip filler near me, who's doing spider vein treatment near me, et cetera, et cetera. This is exactly what you want to see from something like local power. So again, guys, when we're really trying to grow our strategy well and to grow it better and more efficiently, these are just very simply tools that you have to have in place. Can we go back over to the slide deck, please?
And I'll just to make a quick point here as well. Everyone, we work with a lot of individuals who, are still kind of working within a clinical environment as well. So from time to time, we'll work with an RN who is still, working in emergency medicine, or a nurse practitioner, but they have ambitions of growing out their medical spa and solo injecting practice over the course of time. So what Michael's basically saying here is that for that individual who eventually wants to transition out of clinical medicine, who wants to get away from family medicine and really only focus on aesthetics, these are all building blocks to get there quicker. And these are strategies that we've actually seen work because the data backs all of this up. So if you find that you're in a position that, again, it's like, hey, I know that I eventually want to transition fully into aesthetics, but I just can't fully devote everything to that right now because I have to pay other bills, then this would be an example of a strategy that allows you to connect those dots quicker and more efficient and start to see a higher volume of the right types of patients that you're looking for. Because here's the thing, when you're optimizing for Google search, specifically within those directory listings, you're really optimizing your online presence for what is called intent-based search, meaning someone is actively going to Google and typing in Botox provider near me, fillers near me. Anything near me becomes a lot better optimized when you have consistency within your NAP information. So that's why, looking in accordance with our pyramid of success here, right after you have a website established, this is really the second most access point, because You could have the most beautiful website in the world, but unless it's driving localized traffic, localized being the key word, then what good is it?
Yeah, it's a great point. The lowest hanging fruit is obviously the closest to your practice. And so you always want to think local before you think about more global. Now, with all of that being said, I also want to set an expectation here that just managing your citations alone is definitely not enough. What that also needs to be fortified with is the consistency of a review strategy, and specifically Google reviews. Guys, by the way, before I continue, you might notice at the start of some of these slides here, there's a QR code. If your practice is really actively trying to grow more and you're really seeking more of that guidance, please feel free to take out your phone as you're looking at this. Feel free to scan this if you would like. This actually will link directly to mine as well as Robbie's calendar. You can feel free to schedule some time to be able to connect with us one-on-one. And we can certainly do a little bit more of a deeper dive on that here as well too. But the next piece of this, in terms of what really helps to fortify your digital strategy, is what you're doing to then drive reviews online, specifically Google reviews. Why that is? Well, it's simply because the traditional word of mouth model is now dead. Oftentimes I work with practices, and listen guys, if your lead sources are not first and foremost referral driven, then there's a problem at your practice that marketing cannot fix. Your practice first and foremost needs to be referral driven, and every practice that I talk to will always tell me, well, my word of mouth patients are always their best in terms of quality. That is absolutely true. However, gone are the days where we just say, oh, you need to go to Med Spa ABC, or you need to go to check out this restaurant, and we just simply go. That would be silly. We hear that name, and then we go online to affirm that that is a practice that we really would like to go to, or that would be a restaurant that we want to go to. And so much about those judgments are predicated around how a business entity is reviewed online. At the end of the day, patients want to know that they are going to practices that are very, very successful. If you're a 5.0 rating with 200 reviews, that is a great thing, because you are just building what we call social trust into your practice. Not only does one person say you're great, but everyone else thinks that you're great as well here too. Now, if we can switch over to the screen share here again, please, on the other computer, if we could. There's also a challenge, though, that a lot of our practices are oftentimes faced with. And I hear this all the time from my clients, as they say to me, you know what, Michael, I have so many happy people. I ask them to leave me reviews, and they say that they're going to leave me reviews. Hopefully, I think you guys could probably figure out where the conclusion of this story comes from. What happens? Patients don't do it. And the reason why they don't do it, sorry guys, I'm on a bit of a slower lag here. And the reason why they don't do it is simply because it's your job to make it easier for a patient to leave you a review. Just asking them alone is not going to do it enough. Sorry guys, let me just get back here. And if we could go back to the screen share here again. So how can we help you with that problem? Enter in Review Power. Now, guys, there's a lot of review tools that are out there on the market. I will tell you, Review Power works. It is a Google compliant system because it does not do what we call review gating. And if anyone is using a review system in place that gates the reviews, in other words, says, hey, how was your experience from 1 to 5? Or how did you like your experience? Thumbs up or thumbs down? That is a non-Google compliant system. And you can really hurt your localized SEO if you are doing review gating. Oftentimes I've talked to practices where they build a lot of reviews, but they never get shown because people are not generating reviews in the Google right way. Now, the most efficient way of really facilitating a Google review request is you have to text that out to a patient. But just texting it to them is also not enough either. What you first and foremost always want to do is you want to ask the patient. You never want to ask a patient to leave you a review, but what you do want to ask a patient for is to offer you feedback. Because why? Because your practice is patient-centric. You are catering around the needs of your patients, the needs of your community. However, you can't grow your business in the way that you want without getting feedback from your patient base. Would you be willing to offer me feedback about your experience here today? Sure, of course, I'd be happy to do that. How can I help you? Well, great. Later on today, I'm going to send you out a quick little text message. If you wouldn't mind taking a few moments to fill this out here, I would greatly appreciate it. Guys, if your practice does not have a review management software, you need to invest into one, because reviews, there is a marketing component to this, but fundamentally it is just good business practice. because eventually you are going to get a bad review. It happens to everybody, regardless of how great you are or how well processed your practice is. There's always going to be that one patient that's just going to have a gripe and they don't mind taking it out on your online reputation. So that's why you want to be able to get in front of this problem. So having a tool like this, where very simply you can log in, can you email out review requests? You certainly can, but texting is always going to get a much higher adoption and conversion rate. That's why you always want to text as opposed to email. From there, then, having just a quick process where you can just select from a drop-down template, have your text all written out here. You're not having to type in anything into your phone. I'm just going to type in Michael at MyAdvice. Now, what you can see is that a tool like this integrates with both Google as well as Facebook. These are two most important review sites as it relates to how you make money. Why is that? Because Google has the most application with revenue acquisition. It helps you tremendously with your Google visibility. If people are looking you up, it's typically because they haven't been into your practice. That's why that is new revenue to become acquired. Facebook, however, though, has most of its application with patient retention and really helping to increase more of what we call, again, that patient lifetime value, helping to influence how they're going to be investing into multiple services over the course of their lifetime. Now, if you have a busy practice, what you can always do is export a CSV file from your EMR or from your point of sale system and just upload a list of contacts in here. Just because it's me here on this, though, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in my name. I'm going to put my cell phone in here, send myself a quick little text, going to decide to send that out immediately. And basically, at this point, your job is now done. On the receiving end, I'm about to actually receive a text message here from an 801 phone number, which came in right here. And here you can say it's addressed to my name. It happened instantaneously. It's signed here from Michael at MyAdvice. And very simply put, guys, the name of the game is ease. You don't want people to have a whole complicated process where they go to your Google profile, have to type it into their browser, then click on the review link, then try to find the review. Like, it's just too complicated. Very simple. So I receive a text here, click on a link, takes me to a landing page. This is now a landing page where this always is integrated with your practice's logo and your branding, but then these are your direct integrations with Google and Facebook. All you need to do is click on that integration. If you're signed in, it literally will take the patient right here to where they then have to leave the review. Now, a solid review strategy is really four things. You want to have a good rating. You want to have good volume of reviews, which if you're just getting started, that's going to help to take some time. The most important piece is consistency. You want to be very consistent and diligent with how you're generating reviews. Typically, what I always recommend as a word of thumb, think about your weekly volume. Are you generating 5% of reviews compared to your weekly volume? So if you're a practice that sees 100 patients a week, you should be generating 5 new reviews per week on Google. That's not without the realm of possibility. The last thing is also responding to your reviews. You want to engage with them in a HIPAA-compliant way, of course. You don't necessarily want to say, hey, Michael, we're really glad you had such great results from Botox. But you do want to acknowledge and say, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for your positive feedback. We're going to make sure that we'll share this here with our team. And actually, our tool will also do this here as well, too, because when you go over to the latest review section, which is right over here, and if you click on that, it will show you all of your reviews that have been populated, both from Google and Facebook. It's all right here. And you can just click on whichever review that you're looking to reply to. Here it's a 5-star review. You can read what the patient has written. And then you just basically select from your response template. Again, it's just a very benign response acknowledging the review, and you submit that reply into Google. It's all done here for you. Guys, 10 minutes a week focusing on your review strategy is going to pay you dividends in terms of more lead generation and quality leads that are coming to your practice because it influences most and foremost your word of mouth pipeline.
The one thing I'll add here as well, Michael, is when it comes down to the review generation process, as Mike said, it's supposed to be quick. It's supposed to be easy. The key here is that you want to add in and layer in just a little bit of humanness, if that is a word, into this process. So in other words, before you're actually sending over the request, first asking the patient, hey, are we making some progress here? Are you having a good experience? Are you happy with your results? By asking that question first, it's really laying a better foundation for you to then follow up and say, hey, that's fantastic. I'm happy that you're happy. I'm happy that we're showing results here for you. Hey, if it's okay with you, we would love to send over a text message. And if you don't mind leaving us some feedback, is really the key word. feedback about your experience with us, that would be really appreciated. So if you like control, if you like the ability of basically cherry picking which patients would actually receive this type of message, then this is a great tool to have within your practice.
Absolutely. If we could go back to the slide deck, please. Awesome. Okay, cool. So now, guys, we finally reached social media, because again, social media is really going to have most of its application with helping to, again, increase more of that patient lifetime value. Now, what I will tell you is that when Rob and I work with practices, and let me just also kind of acknowledge the elephant in the room here, this is an area of your marketing where either practices want to own completely and they do not want to do any, like they don't want anyone else touching their own social media. And if that's the case, that's fine. There's also practices that will say, I have no idea what to do. Like the whole idea of social media really intimidates me, and I feel like I need some help with that. What I will say is that though, regardless of those profiles, what we tend to see is that practices tend to treat their social media 99% of the time the wrong way. And the reason why that is because they treat it as a sales billboard where it's just special, sale, incentive. And the idea about social is that we don't go on social media to be sold. We go to become engaged. And it's the engagement that does the selling. And I'll share with you guys a little slide here. And this slide's a few years older, but I think it does a really good job of really kind of demonstrating this point here. I'm sure if everybody can think about this, Progressive car insurance, obviously it's a very well-known brand in the national sphere here. Think about, Progressive car insurance. So if you go to their Facebook page, what you're going to find is that, and again, this slide's a little bit older here, and sorry, I ruined this here for a quick moment. But the Progressive Facebook page has this from a few years ago, had about 343,000 likes to their Facebook page. But who's the face of Progressive car insurance? I obviously gave it away here. It's Flo. So Flo, why do we like Flo? Well, she's dorky, she's cute, she's safe, she feels like she's going to not stab us in the back. And Flo's Facebook page has 5.4 million likes to the page. Same company, much different engagement. And it's because of the engagementness of Flo and that's really the main reason as to why this page really gets much more traction. If we could go back to our screen share here again, though, if we could. As I had mentioned, when we work with them, they either tend to say, you know what, I don't want anyone ever touching my social media, or consequently, people will say, I don't know what to do, and I really feel like I need some help and I need some guidance here. I need somebody to really help me out throughout this process. Guys, the name of the game with your online strategy is consistency, okay? You want to be consistent with your citations. You want to be consistent with how you're populating reviews compared to your patient volume. You also want to be consistent with how you're generating social media content. The reality is, if you're not posting at least every other day, you're not really showing a platform like Instagram, like Facebook, like TikTok, that you're really a user of the platform. They promote practices that will have good engagement, but also that actively post on a consistent basis. So we help to alleviate this problem, or to at least, I would say, pair with you in this journey by offering a solution that's called Social Power, okay? As a product, this is a tool that we have, we price at $275 per month. It's very affordable social media. What we oftentimes will also do too is package this into a website package as well too, which we can talk to you guys about that. But effectively what we do is we curate lifestyle-driven med spa content, and it's meant to be posted 4 days a week on your Facebook page and then 3 days a week on your Instagram. So it's a total of 7 posts that you're going to be receiving from us on a weekly basis. Now, what I will also stress here to you guys is that regardless if you use an outside help or if you're doing it on your own, you always want to make sure, especially with outside help, that you're always complementing what an outside company is going to do with your own posts as well. So what we do with a product like this is we actually pre-schedule all this to go out 60 days in advance. So before anything ever even hits the airwaves, our clients are always going to see everything that we've populated for them, and they have a very quick and easy way of being able to log into the content, make their own flavor and spin to it, and then edit it before anything actually hits the airwaves. This is a post that's going out here. If you look at the date here on 1/27, guys, this is just a little demo account here. But as you take a look at this here, maybe if your practice is new, you might want to add in some text here that says, call us today for an appointment. In other words, all the text here is completely modifiable. Maybe you really liked this image, but you just didn't want to talk about Juvederm. You wanted to maybe talk about another service. You can totally edit that as well too. Maybe for whatever reason you didn't like this image, that's totally fine. You can X this image out. You can pull your own image in if you wanted to do that. The one really cool thing about this tool, while we pre-schedule 4 to go out a week on Facebook, 3 to go out a week on Instagram, if you do the math, 52 weeks in a year, that's over 370 posts. We actually, this whole product in its entirety gets you over 500 pieces of content from our post library, where we actually create substitute posts as well. This tool is kind of like if you've ever used a Hootsuite or a Sprout Social, it's kind of like that with a scheduling tool, but it's getting you very specific industry content to complement what you're already doing. Now, the really cool thing about this tool as well is that this also gives you an ability of pre-scheduling out your own content in addition to the ones that we also create here for you as well too. So our clients typically on average, they're generally engaging with their social media once every 2 months, and then that's it. That's kind of the beauty part about this, that it's working to save them a lot of time. So if I wanted to create my own original post here, there's nothing on this scheduled day. I'm going to go to add in an image. I've already preloaded a few into the library here. Maybe I'm going to choose this image right here. I just mentioned to you guys, I just had a little boy, so I'm just going to type in the phraseology. It's a boy. And maybe I want this to say go out at 10 a.m. on the 28th. So once I've done that on that scheduled date and time, that is when you're going to find that original unique post that is then going to be going up. Please don't ever tell my future son, my son in the future, that I've shown him a photo like this, guys. But in any event, this really helps you to become much more efficient in saving you a lot of time at your own social media game.
Yeah, consistency is absolutely key when it comes down to social media. And that's really what this type of product provides our clients. I think Michael would agree with me in saying this. The best type of content is always going to be coming directly from your practice, right? It's unique, it's original, and there's no way around creating that type of content. It kind of is a prerequisite in terms of marketing a modern day medical spa. Now, in the same breath, though, many practices are really struggling with the consistency element of things. And that is really where something like Social Power is really intended to fill in the gaps. It's not meant to replace what you're already doing in terms of social media. But if we're able to fill in the gaps and post on days where you can't get around to it because you're fried, you're busy, there's a lot that's going on, you're running a business, you have a family, that is where this type of tool can really be helpful.
Absolutely. Can we go back to the slide deck, please? Cool. Awesome, guys. Now, the final piece of this, or actually the last two pieces that we're going to just kind of touch on briefly here. Now we're actually getting into search engine optimization. So again, guys, for those of you that might be watching this, that you have been actively doing SEO strategies, you need to fortify that with everything else that we've talked about before SEO comes into play. Now, let me talk to you about what SEO is. If I were a patient and I did a search on Google, and if I said, hey, Google, show me a med spa near me, that is really your local optimization. That's what really managing citations is going to help you to get listed within. However, if you are, say, if I'm a patient that's doing a search, and if I'm searching Google, gosh, what's the difference between Botox and Dysport? I just don't really understand what those differences are. That is where an active content strategy is going to become very, very important for the maturation and getting more traffic into your website. This is now where we really talk about how you're ranking on Google, which pages are really driving traffic and leads for you. What I will tell you is that where we find that SEO fails, and let me just kind of demystify this, everybody, SEO is just very simply time. If you're a med spa that is, say, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, you're not going to need as many SEO hours as if you were in Austin, Texas. One is not as competitive as a market as the other one is. So SEO is not all created equal, but it's all based around time. Typically, the more time that the more that you're investing into SEO, that means the more output of time is being dedicated to SEO, and the more expensive it's going to be, the more aggressive you're actually being. And the same kind of applies on the inverse. The less expensive, least amount of time, least aggressiveness. But what I will say is that SEO always needs to be a collaborative effort between you and the marketing agency that you're actively working with. And if we can actually go back to the screen share here again, I want to share with you one thing is that content is what really drives your visibility when we talk about search engine optimization. You never want to take content away from your website. If anything, you always want to be adding more information, more information, more information. And what I will tell you is that patients that are typically very high valuation patients, they're less price sensitive, they're more wanting to take action. They search Google in more of a question and answer based format. And you want to make sure, first and foremost, the proper architecture of your website when you're really trying to get into SEO is that every single service that you're offering has its own dedicated page. If you're a med spa practice and doing injectables, you do not want to put Botox, Restylane, Juvederm all on the same page. All of those need their own individual pages. From there, then, you also want to make sure that you have question and answer based content. And if you take a look at this page here, what is Thermage? Who are the candidates for Thermage? How does Thermage skin tightening work? So on and so forth. You'll notice as we start to scroll down here, it's not just about text, but it's also video content that is embedded onto YouTube. All of this makes you a louder kid in the digital classroom. And the more that you are showing your Google from your website that you are a content generator, the more Google wants to promote you. And the best content is always going to come from you and not some third-party candidate. One of the things that we also like to really work with our practices on is maturing more of this question and answer based content through transcription. So what we might say is, hey, if we're talking about Thermage, and if you offer that at your practice, what are the top 10 questions that your patients are always asking you about Thermage? Or ask your staff that as well too. List those questions down and answer those questions just like you're talking to a patient. Now, if you don't necessarily have the time to do that, we oftentimes will build in an hour of maintenance into our website packages. Particularly if a practice is on SEO, they might say, you know what, just take out their iPhone and record their voice, answer those questions like they're talking to a patient. That audio file gets emailed over to us, that gets transcribed, placed on that web page. And now the output that we have is completely fresh, original, unique information that literally is your worldview onto the page. And that is what makes your website really hum with traffic. The best content is always going to come from you, very much how similar like how Rob was talking about with social media, where you want to be a good content aggregator, but you need to have a marketing team that's going to position you and to guide you. Say, hey, listen, we need to get your top 10 questions on Thermage. You have 2 weeks to get that over to us. Oftentimes when we can play that accountability partner, we see results come very, very quickly. And if you don't believe me here on this, I'll just share with you some data that you're going to see from this particular website here. This is according to SEMrush, but this is a very, very, very healthy traffic curve. If anything, you want to find a constant trend where your traffic is always on an upward climb trajectory, where week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter, the site is constantly rising and continuing to generate more organic hits as a function of its content strategy. Can we go back to the slide deck, please? I'm sure, Robbie, you have something you'd like to add to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about ongoing search engine optimization strategies, having questions and answers as an example. So, before someone is actually sitting in your chair about to get an injection, such as Botox, they might be asking questions, right? Questions like, hey, how long is this going to last? Is this going to hurt? Oftentimes what happens with those types of patients is that before they're actually sitting in the chair and asking you those questions, they're actually searching Google for those questions. And the way that Google actually works is if your content is laid out in a way where locally Google recognizes where you're at and you actually have questions down on your website, such as, hey, how long does Botox last? And you're actually supplying the answer to that question as well. That is a great way of targeting someone who is really further along within their buyer's journey, because when they're asking those specific questions, they kind of know what they need. They're getting into the weeds a little bit more and they're just looking for a practice that is able to help them out locally. So one thing that we, again, have a high focus on when we are actually creating content for our clients on a continued basis is really honing in on that Q&A content strategy for the main services that are being promoted within the practice. That's one of the best things that you can do in terms of an ongoing content strategy for your search engine optimization.
Absolutely. It's a great point, Rob. So guys, the last piece of this pie is really now paid search. And this is where your paid ads on social will come from. This is where your paid ads on Google will also come from. And typically people will say, well, people don't click on ads, right? Absolutely not. What we have generally found is that for people that are engaged in paid ad campaigns, businesses are typically going to earn $2 for every dollar spent on an efficient ad campaign on Google. Now, what I will tell you is that if you are not Google certified, you really don't want to run your own ad campaign, because typically what we find is that practices are having to spend so much more in terms of their budget to really not see the returns as they want to. With all of that said, though, the strategy of paid ads is not to be, you want to be, as Robbie had mentioned, very intentional with what it is that you're trying to sell. So in other words, running an ad campaign on just med spa, or running an ad campaign on plastic surgeon or cosmetic dermatologist, those are very poor keywords to run an ad campaign on, because frankly, that can mean anything. However, if you have just gotten that new device into your practice, if you just invested into InMode, and gosh, we want to get more microneedling clients for obviously to get this device using, it's a very intelligent idea to be able to run a paid ad campaign, because you're getting to the top of Google searches, right? You're not having to build it up through optimization, but you're jump-starting the line. I will caution though, I often see practices fail with their ad campaigns when they do it too quickly, when they don't have that foundation fortified. In other words, yeah, you can run an ad campaign on Google for, say, that new device or that new treatment, but if you have a very passive Google review strategy, if you only have, say, 4 reviews, the ad is just the entry point of discovery. The web presence is going to be evaluated on many different levels, from your website to your reviews to your social media. So I always applaud when practices want to be aggressive, but you also want to be aggressive if you have during the right times. So you always want to walk before you run in the digital landscape here. And that's why we always say paid ads, while they can be a great return on your investment, it's also typically going to be the last thing that you do when you have the rest of your foundation fortified.
Yeah, just a quick point on that. Consumers have wised up. So in other words, you can certainly run advertisements within Google search, but the way that we actually then kind of take the additional steps after we click into that ad, we might be impressed. We might like the look and feel, the messaging might be right. But to Michael's point, what do we do as consumers even after we see that ad? We do a Google search, because we want to cross-verify that, hey, this business can help me out, and we want to see reviews. We want to see what other people have to say about their working experience with that organization or that company. So that's really where this pyramid of success, as you guys can see on the screen, makes a tremendous amount of sense, because it doesn't make any sense to dump all of this money into paid search campaigns if you only have 5 Google reviews, when the sample size for your services is extremely small. So that's really where the derivative, the philosophy of this entire pyramid of success has come into play.
So for those of you who are watching this webinar, if your practice is really not happy with the results that you're seeing from your marketing, if you don't know where to turn, again, we bring over 20 years of experience really into this space. If we can go back to the slide deck one more time, please. Okay, there we go. Like I said, we've been around, we were established over 20 years ago. Both Rob and myself bring over 20 years of consulting experience into this space. But the one thing I will say philosophically that really makes us more unique in this market is that we're really wanting to grow with you. Pardon me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to the right slide here. We're not here to oversell, but we're really here to work with practices in the ways that they need and to help them to really mature and to grow out their internet strategy as time goes by. With doing this with as many years, this is a great slide just in terms of our net promoter score from our clients. They actually rank us above some of these top national brands that you can see here nationally, from Coca-Cola to Netflix, Amazon, Apple, et cetera, et cetera. This is actually one of the highest net promoter score rankings of all software companies nationally. So that's definitely a pride, an accolade that we're very, very proud of as well here too. In order to walk the walk, you have to talk the talk as well, or talk the talk, you have to walk the walk rather. If you happen to look us up online, we have almost 500 Google reviews from practices that we serve all over the United States, those that are just getting started, those that are very mature. But name of the game is that we're really here to make a felt impact difference in terms of your revenue maturation, your new patient acquisition. And I just don't want you to take our word for it. I would love for you to take a look at one of our clients, Dwayne from a med spa practice that we work with in Bethesda, Maryland, decided to say, guys, if you could cue that up to 1:16. I just want to put this last little video here with you guys just to share this here with you.
The website was dated. It was horrible. I had an employee on there. I still have an employee on there. Well, she's gone now, thanks to you guys, that hadn't been with me since March. So I'm carrying this person for 2 months. It was frustrating. And so coincidentally, MyAdvice reached out to me. And through the initial phone call, I realized as much as I liked MyAdvice 3 years ago, I fell in love with you guys this time. There are vendors and there are partners. And vendors are a dime a dozen. They just want to separate grain from your wallet. That's pretty much all they want to do. A partner is someone you want to go have a beer with after work, because they're going to be with you. They're going to understand your business, take the time to learn it. And you guys did that. It was remarkable. Through this hour conversation, and came up with this miracle website. And I am hard to get a hold of. I run 2 businesses. We're understaffed. I'm out a front desk girl. I'm out an MA. So we've been just scrambling. So she had very little information to work with. And oh my God, we did the unveiling earlier this week. I had tears. It was like, oh my God, you guys, because at the end of the day, it's all about me. I said, you just made me a hero. Whether it's accurate or not, and I believe it is, somebody sees a crappy website, crappy company, don't invest well, they're not gonna take care of you, and that's just me. And now I've got something that I'm proud of, and I can send people to. Now I'm actually engaging. The copy that she did makes me want to engage with Dr. McDonald and Deirdre Fisher, my nurse practitioner. So for me, it all starts at the website. Because if you don't have a good website, people going and knowing where you are, unless you're just paying for a boatload of leads, those media outlets they aren't what they used to be. So you got to be more creative, and it's word of mouth. And so I need people to see the website and feel it when they come in here, and vice versa. They leave here, then they go, oh, let's go check that out on the internet. Our website isn't elegant. It is just warm. And I'm from Nebraska. Everything has to have a warm, fuzzy feeling with me. This website gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling, and that's it. That's the base that you can build off of.
Awesome. So, guys, I had mentioned, like I mentioned as well, if your practice is in a position where you're not knowing what to do, who to turn to, if that partnership is not there, what Dwayne had just said, that's very much a representative of who we are as an organization. There are vendors and there's partners in this space, and we are really here to partner with you and to be able to guide you throughout this process as time goes on. We are offering some really nice incentive here for Aesthetic Record attendees as well as registrants. Basically, if your website is in a position where you're knowing you need to redesign it, if it's on a bad platform, if it's outdated, would love to talk to you about that. The way that our modeling really works is that we bundle a lot of the marketing services into the cost of the website. And additively, what we also do for our practices is we do automatic redesigns of the site every 2 years. If your practice has a great website though, but you know that you need, citations, or I really like that social media tool, or I need that review tool, great, let's have a conversation there as well too. We're really here to really bend around what your needs are to be able to put you into plans and to really position you into great success as we obviously enter into the rest of this year. So with all of that being said, I'm just speaking for myself, but I'm sure Robbie would reaffirm, we're just very grateful for everyone's attendance here today. If there are any questions that you have, this is our contact information here. I'm sorry, our emails are a little bit harder to read right there. But as I had mentioned, if you wanted to book a meeting with either Rob and myself, and if you are really actively trying to grow and make a difference into your strategy and in a position where you do want to put a different mark on 2023, I would encourage you to please scan and book a meeting with Rob and I so that we can talk a little bit more about how we can help you.
Hey guys, good to see you again. It's been a minute. Fantastic presentation. I feel like I learned a tremendous amount, even about Aesthetic Record and our own marketing efforts and what we're doing here to grow our brand. But for those of you who want to get in connection with these guys, we'll send out an email probably in the morning with a follow-up of this exact webinar, contact information, how to get in touch with them. So if you didn't get it tonight, we'll make sure you get it by tomorrow. I know that many of you have to roll off and go take care of kids and, for some of you, new babies, of course, and go take care of different things at home. So if you can't stick on for questions, totally fine. We'll have their contact information in the email tomorrow. I'll reach out to them and get it all booked. But what a fantastic presentation. And really, I've learned a tremendous amount. I hope that you guys got as much out of it as we did, because it was fabulous content. So thank you both so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Michael. Bye, Robbie. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.